Heyo, and welcome back to my channel. So I got a really cool book for Christmas thanks to my sister and her boyfriend because honestly they were really mean about it actually. Because she read it and she's like, oh my goodness, this is such a good book, you need to read it. And I was like, can I borrow it? She's like, no, I gave it to somebody else. And I was like, can I have it after they're done? And she's like, sure. And then the next time I asked about it, she's like, oh, I just lent it to this other person. Or like, oh, I just sent it off to North Carolina and like, sorry. It's like, okay. And so like, they're passing it all around the United States and they never give it to me, which is very sad because I feel like I was in line second. But that's okay, not bitter. So anyway, she finally just bought me my own copy for Christmas on the condition that I make everybody else read it. So there you go, War of Loves by David Bennett, and it's a very good book. For some reason, it was sparking these thoughts in me, and I literally, like, thinking back on the book and the part that I was reading, I don't even really know why it gave me these thoughts, but I'm gonna say them anyway because it's something I've been thinking about. And it's also probably a terrible thing to talk about on my YouTube channel because this is very much like personal experience and like feelings I grew up with that it's very hard to explain. So I don't know if this is at all relatable, but I'm going to try to explain what I've been feeling and not like what the book showed me about myself and like kind of my purpose in life and just some desires that God's been growing my heart for, like what he wants to do with me. Hopefully, I'm really hoping that that's what he wants to do with me because he's making me really, really want to be used in this way. So from reading this book, one thing I realized, I guess maybe it's about the way that he talks about Christians and like the impressions that he had of them when he grew up, and then also like the way that God was just seriously anointing him with the Holy Spirit and like putting a ministry on him to go out and speak to people. That was making me realize that that's really what I want for my life. Is I really specifically want to help people understand that there's so much more to the life that they think that they were born into, I guess. And I never used to like the idea of talking to people who grew up in the church or like nominal Christians, just because it feels like it's so much harder to reach them because you can't surprise them with the beauty of the gospel because they're like, yeah, heard that all my life, and like they have reasons for why they've rejected that. And it's like, how do you make them come back and look at it again, or like even if they think they're a Christian, make them realize that there's so much more, like that there's actually a relationship with God available to them. And that always just seemed kind of hard to me, like a lot harder than trying to show this to someone who's never heard of it before, because they're so much more likely to recognize the truth in it and the beauty and goodness in it, and like to want that, to see that as the fulfillment of what they've been looking for all their lives, instead of Christians who think they've tried it and then they've turned away and said that that wasn't what I wanted or that didn't satisfy me. Anyway, and so thinking about that made me remember the times that I felt like that in my life, I guess. Just not really understanding who God is or what he has for me. So like when I was little, like I never wanted to be an adult because I had this conception of what adulthood was like, that it is so dry and boring and you're sucked up in taxes and trying to pay your bills and taking care of your kids and just working all of the time and not having the brain space for anything else. Like adults don't read. I never saw adults that were like reading for fun or like, I don't know, super excited about their job or like, I don't know. I just got this impression that it just all the joy and the color and the imagination goes out of life when you're older, and I was like, I don't want that. Like I never wanted to grow up. And not that I particularly felt like I loved living in imagination, or like I didn't really feel like the Peter Pan concept of never growing up, like I want to play in Imagination Land the rest of my life. But it was just like, I don't know, I was like in a spot where the things that I knew and like the things that I was learning about God, and I was like, adults don't understand this. Like they just, I feel like they just have this cardboard cutout of God, and like I haven't ever seen an adult express emotion about who God is to them. I guess I have seen Dad do that sometimes, but it was just like this impression that there's no joy that adults get from their relationship with God. God was opening up to me a side of himself that I was like, if I grow up, I feel like I'm gonna lose this, and I don't know how to be an adult and still hold on to this. It feels like that's just not gonna be a thing. And so yeah, I just really hated the concept of adults. And then that's something that God was showing me that I had wrong, and adulthood is very different. Like there is a way to hold on to that heart. Like even if not many adults are doing that, I can still do that. That's still something that he's called me to. Another concept that I had in my mind that I was like, I don't ever want to be like that, concept of the homeschool mom. Like I hated the stereotype that I had of that, of just like, because I don't know, I just feel like they were so wrapped up in their kids. All their time is spent taking their kids to swim lessons or soccer practice and like stressing out about making kids sit down and actually do their math homework, trying to figure out what to do with all of these dishes. Should I just go paper plates instead completely? And thinking about like trying to fix a bunch of meals in the midst of all the chaos, and like the house is messy, the kids are screaming. It's like too much to keep up with, just like hectic stress, and like there's no time for quietness of the soul and like the things that I find life-giving, like reading, creative writing, making music, spending time with God. So I just really did not want my life to be sucked up in my kids and like getting my focus distracted. I feel like I had a good example, but now I can't think of what it was. The only other thing I can think of that I really did not want to do was get married, but that was for other reasons. Yeah, maybe like having kids in general, just like feeling that they would take so much out of me and I wouldn't know how to like parent them well, that it wouldn't be life-giving to like raise them up, that I wouldn't know how to teach them about God or invest in their lives well. And so then it would just be like these people needing me and I'm like, I'm still an introvert, please leave me alone. So all of those concepts that I had made me really not want to be an adult, be a homeschooling mom instead of sending my kids off to public school, and have kids in the first place. Like that is not what I want. Like that is not good. That is not life-giving. That is not what I would have for myself. There has to be more. And I feel like a lot of times people have that concept about God that they think they know all there is to him and they don't want that because that's not beautiful or like not what their soul desires, not the love that they were wanting. And I feel like I've said this so many times in the last few videos, but like it's so important that we have a right concept of God. And what breaks my heart is when people have an incorrect one. And I know that I have an incorrect one too. But that's something I'm really fighting against and trying to learn so much more about. And I'm so glad of the ways that God's like pulling the blinders off my eyes and showing me more of who he is and the life that he's called me to, that it is going to be beautiful in every moment, even the little mundane ones that I'm so scared of being trapped in the boring, dull everydayness of life, that he's going to show me that there's life and grace and deep, true meaning there. And so I'm like less and less afraid of the things that I was like, I don't ever want to have to face that. Even as they draw closer, like here I am technically an adult, here I am getting married, here I am actually being like, maybe I would actually really appreciate having kids in a few years. Like God's just been renewing my mindset. And I feel like he does that with himself. And so we can't ever give up on him because there's always so much more to learn. And we never actually know it all. I literally don't, I'm crying. It's just like, it makes me so sad for people not to understand what he's like and what he wants for them. And I know that we have a wrong misconception of him, because if I'm ever not wanting to spend time with God or like ever rejecting him in my heart, that means I have a wrong perception of him. Because if I truly knew who he was, I would long to worship him with all of my heart, all of my mind, all of my soul, all of my strength. Like all of my life would be dedicated to him. All the aspects and the realms of who I am wrapped up inside Coriel. Like that would all be given to him in worship and surrender, because he is perfect love. And how could I not respond to that with perfect love if I understood that? And so like whenever I don't want him, I have to reassess and be like, okay, I know something is wrong with me. I know something is wrong with my perspective. It just breaks my heart to think of all of these people walking away from the church because they feel like God is not enough for them, or all of the teenage girls who are like so excited about Christianity because it means like cute journals and happy Bible verses and like coffee and beautiful cute Instagram posts and like joy and good vibes and things like that, that don't understand that there's also like a suffering that comes with it, and there's sacrifice. Like you have to kill parts of yourself that you desperately want to hang on to in order to find more goodness, more joy, more beauty. Like you can see the surface level of God and they're falling in love with that, but like you have to go deeper and you have to give yourself up, lay yourself down to receive more of him. And I feel so sorry for all of the people that feel like God is this cruel, demanding father who only asks them to sacrifice things for him and only wants to take away what they hold most dear, because that is not true either. Like there is so much beauty, so much goodness, so much life, so much tenderness that he has to offer people. And when we feel so weak and like he's cruel and beating us down, we don't understand his actual heart for us, that he's so gentle, so merciful, and so tender. And the people that think he's a safe, happy God, he's wild, he's dangerous. And for the people that are so afraid of his anger, like he's gentle and he's kind. No matter what side of him we're attracted to or understanding or learning more about, there's always the other side. And so he's taking us on this crazy adventure, going back and forth, learning all of these different aspects of him, trying to hold all of these paradoxes in a balance in our minds as he shows us him that we literally cannot comprehend. And we have to have all of our lives to experience that and begin to understand it even a little bit. I don't know. Okay, so we had a ton of family over for Christmas, and I was doing a puzzle with all of my family members that are not strategy gamers. And it was one of those puzzles where you are putting together all the pieces and suddenly you realize you did something wrong because the edge pieces don't line up, and you know there are no more edge pieces. Like you have all of them, but somehow the configuration is wrong. Somewhere he must have messed up and put two together that didn't actually go together, and you have to like go back and rework everything, look at everything so carefully, figure out where the mistake was, rearranged until you have the right picture. And I've always compared my perspective of God to like putting together a puzzle and like placing in these pieces, or like concept of life. Like you're putting in these pieces all of your life. God is so much bigger than we think, and he's so much more loving than we think. God is so much wilder than we think, and he wants so much more from us than we think that we have to sacrifice for him. But it's so, so worth it. Thank you for watching, and goodbye until more interesting things happen.